Have you ever looked at a woman and thought, I can't tell if she's genuinely interested in me or just being kind? That quiet uncertainty is something most men live with, often without ever saying it out loud. You replay conversations in your head, analyze her tone, reread messages, and still you're left with the same uneasy mix of hope and doubt. One moment she seems warm and engaged, the next distant and unreadable. And the more you try to figure it out, the more confused you become. Here's the truth most men never hear. Women rarely express their feelings directly in the beginning. Not because they want to confuse you, but because attraction, for them, begins emotionally, not verbally. Before words ever appear, signals do. Subtle shifts in energy, attention, and behavior that reveal far more than any sentence ever could. The problem is, most men are trained to listen for confirmation instead of observing patterns. They wait for reassurance, clarity, or labels, while the real answer is already unfolding right in front of them. And because they miss it, they either rush too fast, pull back too soon, or unknowingly disrupt the very connection that was forming. In this video, we're going to break that pattern. You'll learn the one subtle behavior that reveals when a woman is already emotionally invested in you, even if she hasn't admitted it to herself yet. If you're tired of guessing and ready to understand what's really happening beneath the surface, you're exactly where you need to be. To understand a woman's behavior, you must first recognize a distinction that most men overlook: the difference between attraction and emotional attachment. These two are not the same, and confusing them is where most misunderstandings begin. Attraction is light, reactive, and often spontaneous. It's curiosity, chemistry, and interest. A woman can feel attracted to you, enjoy your presence, and still keep her emotional guard fully intact. Attraction doesn't require vulnerability. Emotional attachment does, and that's why attachment feels heavier, deeper, and far more intimidating for her. When emotional attachment begins to form, something shifts internally. Her defenses, built from past disappointments and emotional experiences, start to lower just slightly. Not enough for her to declare her feelings, but enough for her behavior to change. This shift often creates inner conflict. Part of her wants to move closer, while another part wants to protect herself. That tension is why her signals can feel confusing. This is where many men make a critical mistake. They assume distance means disinterest, or they try to force clarity through words. But emotional attachment doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself quietly, through patterns, consistency, and instinctive responses. Once you understand this difference, her behavior stops feeling random. You stop reacting emotionally, and instead, you begin observing with clarity. And that awareness alone puts you ahead of most men. One of the most important truths about female psychology is this: a woman's real feelings are rarely communicated through direct statements, especially in the early stages. They are revealed through patterns of behavior. What she consistently does matters far more than what she occasionally says. Men are naturally conditioned to listen for verbal clarity. They want confirmation, reassurance, and definition. Women, however, communicate attraction instinctively. Their emotions surface through subtle, repeated actions that often happen without conscious intent. These signals are quiet, but they are honest. When a woman is emotionally drawn to you, her behavior begins to align with your presence. You'll notice small shifts in how she responds, how she engages, and how comfortable she feels around you. This isn't performance. It's her nervous system responding to safety and emotional resonance. That's why focusing on isolated moments can be misleading. A delayed reply, a brief withdrawal, or a change in tone doesn't define her interest. The pattern does. Consistency over time reveals whether she's emotionally opening or emotionally guarded. Men who understand this stop chasing clarity and start reading alignment. They don't pressure her for answers. They allow space for her emotions to unfold naturally. And in doing so, they create the very conditions where emotional attachment can grow without resistance. The first clear indicator that a woman is becoming emotionally invested is the way she gives you her attention. Not the kind of attention that feels polite or obligatory, but attention that flows naturally, without effort or expectation. When a woman is only being friendly, her engagement has limits. Conversations have clear endpoints. Her responses are appropriate but contained. However, when emotional interest begins to form, those limits soften. She stays present longer than necessary. She remains engaged even when there's no obvious reason to. The interaction doesn't feel rushed or forced. It feels easy. You'll notice that you're no longer carrying the conversation alone. She contributes, follows up, and remembers small details you've shared. This isn't something she plans. It happens because her attention is already oriented toward you. Emotionally, she feels comfortable being there. This is where many men go wrong. They mistake this effortless attention as an invitation to accelerate things. They increase intensity, seek reassurance, or push for certainty. But emotional interest at this stage is delicate. It grows through calm presence, not pressure. When her attention comes freely, your role isn't to demand more of it. It's to remain grounded and consistent. Let her continue giving without feeling that it suddenly comes with expectations. That's how emotional curiosity deepens instead of closing. As a woman's emotional interest deepens, her behavior begins to change in more personal ways. One of the most telling signs is emotional openness, often paired with light, playful testing. These two usually appear together, and neither is random. Emotional openness starts small. She may share minor personal thoughts, opinions, or experiences that she doesn't normally offer. They aren't dramatic confessions, but they are intentional. She's allowing you access to parts of her inner world to see how you respond. At the same time, she may begin to challenge you playfully, tease your views, or lightly question your perspective. This isn't resistance. It's curiosity. She's exploring emotional compatibility and observing your stability. What matters here isn't having the right answer. It's how you carry yourself. Calm confidence, humor, and emotional balance signal safety. Over-explaining, defensiveness, or trying to prove your value does the opposite. Many men misread this phase and either retreat or try too hard to impress. Both disrupt the connection. The correct response is simple presence. You engage without chasing, respond without performing, and remain relaxed in who you are. When a woman feels that she can express herself and test boundaries without unsettling you, her emotional trust grows, and trust is the foundation upon which attachment is built. When a woman moves beyond curiosity and into emotional investment, her behavior becomes more aligned with yours. This shift is subtle but powerful. You'll begin to notice that her energy starts to match your own, almost effortlessly. She may mirror your tone, your pace of speech, or even the phrases you use. This isn't imitation in a conscious sense. It's a neurological response that occurs when emotional comfort and connection are present. Her nervous system feels at ease around you, so it naturally synchronizes. This alignment signals that she's no longer just reacting to you, she's attuning to you. Along with this mirroring comes subtle investment. She remembers small details you've mentioned in passing. She follows up on things you talked about days earlier. She adjusts her timing or availability without being asked. None of this feels forced or transactional. It happens because emotionally, you've started to matter. This is an important moment. Many men overlook it because it doesn't look dramatic. There's no declaration, no obvious escalation. But internally, this is where attachment begins to take shape. Your responsibility here is restraint. You don't need to amplify the connection or test it. Stay consistent, stay grounded. When a woman feels that her emotional alignment isn't being exploited or rushed, she relaxes even more deeply into it. And that's how interest turns into genuine attachment. One of the most confusing moments for men occurs when a woman shows clear interest, then suddenly seems to pull back. Messages slow down, her energy shifts. She becomes less expressive. Most men immediately assume they've done something wrong or that her interest has disappeared. In reality, this phase often signals the opposite. When emotional attachment begins to form, many women experience internal resistance. Growing closer means becoming vulnerable, and vulnerability brings the risk of emotional pain. Pulling back is sometimes her way of regaining emotional balance, not a sign of rejection. It's a protective pause. This is where many connections are unintentionally damaged. Men react to the withdrawal by increasing effort, seeking explanations, or trying to restore closeness through reassurance. Unfortunately, that response often creates pressure at the exact moment she needs space to feel safe again. The most effective response is calm consistency. You don't punish her distance, and you don't chase it. You remain warm, stable, and unchanged in your self-respect. This signals emotional reliability, which is what she's unconsciously evaluating. When a woman feels that your presence isn't conditional on her constant availability, her nervous system relaxes. And once that fear settles, she naturally moves closer again. Understanding this distinction allows you to navigate emotional fluctuations without misinterpreting them or sabotaging the bond that's forming. When a woman becomes emotionally invested, one of the clearest signs is a shift in how she expresses vulnerability. At this stage, she no longer feels the need to manage how she's perceived around you. Her openness becomes natural, not calculated. You may notice that she starts sharing thoughts or emotions without carefully framing them. Her stories are less polished. Her reactions are more honest. She may admit uncertainty, frustration, or sensitivity without trying to appear strong or composed. This isn't emotional intensity, it's emotional safety. What's important to understand is that this kind of vulnerability only appears when she feels secure. She trusts that you won't judge her, dismiss her, or lose respect for her emotional honesty. In her mind, your presence has become a place where she can be real. Many men unintentionally disrupt this moment by trying to fix her emotions, analyze them, or respond too intensely. The most grounding response is simple attentiveness. You listen. You stay calm. You don't rush to change how she feels. When a woman senses that her vulnerability doesn't destabilize you, her attachment deepens. She begins to associate you with emotional relief and understanding. And at that point, attraction has evolved into something far more meaningful: trust. When emotional attachment takes hold, a woman's investment becomes visible not through declarations, but through quiet changes in her priorities. This stage doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself through consistency. She begins to remember details about your life that others overlook. She checks in without a reason. She makes time for you even when her schedule is full. Slowly and often unconsciously, she starts to integrate you into her routines. This isn't obligation, it's emotional inclusion. At this point, you'll notice that effort no longer feels negotiated. She doesn't need to be convinced to show up. She wants to. Her actions reflect a growing sense of emotional responsibility toward the connection. Even when you're not physically present, your presence remains in her thoughts. This is where many men misunderstand what's happening. They look for verbal confirmation or visible intensity, but emotional commitment at this level is calm. It feels steady, not dramatic. That steadiness is the strongest signal of all. Your role here is awareness, not control. Appreciate the investment without demanding more. Maintain your purpose, your composure, and your emotional stability. When a woman feels that her commitment is met with quiet strength instead of expectation, her attachment solidifies naturally. This is the stage where many men unknowingly undo everything they've built. Not because the woman stops caring, but because their behavior changes once they sense her emotional investment. The moment a man feels secure in her interest, he often relaxes in the wrong way. One common mistake is emotional inconsistency. He becomes less grounded, more reactive to her moods, or overly focused on her responses. His sense of direction starts to revolve around how she feels in the moment. What once felt like calm confidence slowly turns into emotional dependence, and her nervous system immediately notices the shift. Another mistake is taking her effort for granted. When a woman begins to invest emotionally, she's watching closely to see if that investment is respected. If her openness is met with complacency, distraction, or subtle entitlement, her sense of safety begins to fade. Some men also begin to over-explain themselves or seek reassurance once attachment forms. They try to lock in what was already growing naturally. Unfortunately, the need for reassurance signals inner instability, and attraction weakens the moment it feels managed instead of felt. Women don't pull away because they stop loving. They pull away because they stop feeling safe expressing that love. Emotional security must be maintained, not assumed. Consistency, presence, and self-respect are what preserve the connection once it's been earned. At the deepest level, real attraction has very little to do with strategy, performance, or persuasion. It's about emotional stability. A woman doesn't emotionally attach to what impresses her. She attaches to what calms her. You cannot make a woman love you through effort alone. What you can do is become the kind of man whose presence feels steady, grounded, and emotionally reliable. That stability allows her to relax into her feelings instead of guarding against them. This is where masculine strength is often misunderstood. It's not control, dominance, or emotional distance. It's composure. It's the ability to remain centered regardless of emotional fluctuations, misunderstandings, or temporary uncertainty. When you hold that center, she feels safe to bring both her softness and her complexity into the connection. A woman will continue to test this stability, not because she doubts you, but because she needs to know it's real. Each time you respond with patience instead of ego, clarity instead of defensiveness, and presence instead of pressure, her trust deepens. In the end, women don't stay for excitement alone. They stay for peace that feels like home. If your energy provides that peace, you don't need to chase affection or demand commitment. Her attachment will grow naturally, sustained by respect, emotional integrity, and the quiet strength of a man who knows himself. If there's one idea you take away from this entire breakdown, let it be this. Attraction isn't something you chase, manage, or control. It's something you allow by mastering your own emotional state. Every sign you've learned today points back to the same core truth. A woman invests emotionally when she feels safe, seen, and steady in your presence. You don't need perfect words. You don't need constant intensity. And you don't need to decode every shift in her behavior. When you stay grounded, purposeful, and emotionally composed, her nervous system does the rest. She leans in naturally. She opens up without force. She chooses you without being asked. Most men spend their lives trying to figure women out. The men who succeed focus instead on figuring themselves out. They build a life, a mindset, and an emotional foundation that doesn't shake under pressure. That's what creates real attraction. That's what sustains respect. And that's what turns fleeting interest into lasting connection. If this message resonated with you, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We explore the psychology of attraction, emotional mastery, and masculine clarity for men who are done guessing and ready to lead with confidence. Stay centered, stay disciplined, and remember, when you master your calm, you become unforgettable.